Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Patch 7.2 has some really large features that just about all of us know about, but today I'm going to talk about some of the smaller things that you might not have been aware of, things that generally haven't got a big video on the channel or a massive PR push from Blizzard. So, thing number one, the Relic redesign. This has been covered in blue posts and Q&As, but it definitely is worth covering here. The final trait of the new Order Hall upgrades will cause new relics that drop for your character to have a second sort of trait effect on them, with that trait being at random, but always being a primary stat throughput trait for your spec. Now, there has been some RNG-based pushback from players, but I think the devs are actually decently on the money when it comes to them saying that this will open up more relics to be relevant as like a stopgap to your best in slot. Even ones which by default don't have a great modifier trait on them will at least now have something else that makes them perhaps a bit more relevant to you. I think the only worry is that this is locked behind 50,000 Order Hall resources and likely a few weeks of upgrade timers. I mean, that's a bit of a problem, I guess, but their stated goal overall here is to make relics feel more interesting and offer more customization due to them having more variety. Overall, I think that's a pretty good thing. I would question, though, with more customization being a goal, is it worth having them be being destroyed whenever you apply a new one? Not really sure about that. Okay, so the next thing is Order Hall set gear. Now, first of all, it's actually getting a new upgrade token. It's going to be taking it to item level 870. They actually pushed that up by 10 item levels from an earlier version of the PTR. While you might scoff at that due to how long it took to unlock these bits of gear at launch, I'd like to remind you it's actually a lot faster now. You get your headpiece as soon as you hit level 100, hitting Honored with the Nightfall and won't take long at all. That'll give you the gloves. The legs are for clearing each of the 8 base dungeons, which you'll do pretty easily, and the belt is for getting 100,000 AP, which is like 2 or maybe 3 world quests after using your Artifact Knowledge Compendium. If Order Hall resources are a bit of a worry, then, you might have some spare bloods of Sagaris, which you can use to buy a BOA item that's worth 200 Order Hall resources at the Blood Vendor, so this could be a pretty handy leg up for new characters. Okay, next, let's talk about new AP Compendiums. They have actually confirmed that the Artifact Knowledge Compendiums are being added for the launch of patch 7.2. Unlike how with the base game we had to wait until patch 7.1.5 for the first batch of them to be in the game. The maximum compendium will take a fresh character right up to Artifact Knowledge rank 35, which will allow you to fill in most of the important stuff on your artifact weapon in really next to no time at all. It's definitely good to see this particular form of catch-up persist into the new patch from launch, as I do think originally they maybe had a bit of a misstep with that. Alright, the next thing is the Transmog set UI. They have updated the Transmog window to include gear sets. It currently is full of PvE tier and PvP season sets from live all the way back to vanilla. It's basically just a nice way to help you track your progress on those key sets, and it's a very welcome addition to the game's base UI. Nothing groundbreaking, but yeah, it's a nice little added bonus for players. Okay, next we've got the new animations. So there have been animation updates for the game. I did cover these in a video, but they haven't really been talked about much since the launch of the PTR. Since then, Blizzard have actually added a new aimed shot in for hunters, which really does tie the marksmanship spec together. Feels a lot more punchy and I think just responsive on the PTR. Really, live actually feels kind of terrible in comparison. Hopefully we see similar upgrades for the other classes, like say the Balanced Druids, who had some cool things when the PTR dropped, but maybe could have had a few other improvements. And speaking of improvements, Blood Elf female weapon size has actually been tweaked. Since Warlords, there have been consistent complaints of the Blood Elf female weapon size. Basically, they were quite small to the point where it was to the detriment of the look of some bits of, just like shields and weapons in the game. Blizzard have said that they actually are increasing the scale, and they have done that on the PTR. They've also adjusted some other weapon sizes, with Taurens being slightly smaller and human females having a size reduction because some of their models looked pretty gargantuan, like kind of just silly on live anyway. Overall, I'm happy with what they've done. I think the bit of footage that I'm using to explain it in this video is like a really long polearm that looks very, very long indeed in the PTR. It's not as pronounced with some other bits of gear. Another great change that they're making for the PvP community is the leveling up speed. Your first 50 ranks on any character are going to be roughly 50% faster when patch 7.2 drops. This isn't going to affect your prestige ranks or anything like that, so it basically is just for fresh characters. It means if you roll a new alt, you want to try some PvP on it, you can unlock most of their PvP toolkit and all those abilities a lot faster. And then also on the topic of PvP, we have some very welcome changes and rebalancing to the systems with world PvP. Currently, you can utterly destroy someone due to the pretty insane gaps in player power that are caused by, a combination of just how Legion gearing works and the artifact system. So they've basically just implemented some tweaks on the PTR to rebalance things such that you should see less of a gap in player power in world PvP, and basically the time to kill players should increase, which I think is a pretty good change overall, especially since PvP world quests like Bareback Brawl and Blackrook Arena, they just don't feel that great on newer characters, who are the characters that will likely need to do them anyway and, be doing world quests for progression. So yes, that is another big thumbs up, a nice sort of addition to our systems. Now, world quest base item levels have also been changed. We're going to be seeing an increase in the max base item level in this patch. Currently, it is 845. Patch 7.2 is going to be bringing that number up, which I think is overall something that's good, and it's something we actually see when we talk about dungeon rewards. Dungeon rewards have been scaled up across the board. What does that mean? Well, it means that base item levels for heroics are now 845, and their tuning on the PTR has been done to reflect that. On the PTR, I found my character was being scaled to item level 830 when I try to do a heroic. This overall indicates that 830 is the intended entry item level for heroic dungeons in 7.2. This means that you will likely be able to get to maybe 850 or 855 by spamming heroics. Now, this will all be in line with the new item levels in the patch. It will be in line with how normal dungeons are balanced and all of that stuff. Basically, the big difference here with the dungeon stuff and the world quest stuff is that in the past, say, heroic dungeons would have just been pieces of irrelevant content that were not worth doing. When a new patch came out, they would have been superseded by that patch's new catch-up gear. With this system, that content is still going to be relevant, which I think is basically fantastic. It avoids a really major problem that Warlords of Draenor ran into, where the dungeons just did not matter after a very short period of time. And next, we've got the release schedule. I've seen a lot of confusion around this, a lot of people saying the content is coming out too quickly. Now, I've been keeping up with just sort of the news and trends regarding how Blizzard plan to release content, but I figure that maybe isn't something that everyone is up to date with. Basically, the new raid content of this patch will be releasing sometime after the main patch comes out. So we are going to have a few weeks of time where you're just doing the world content, perhaps even more than a few weeks of time, before we even set foot in the new raid. This is important because a lot of people have been saying this patch is going to come out too soon. And I think it's worth just making sure that people are aware of that they're not, getting angry over something or panicked about something. There's been some panic that Nighthold isn't even going to last that long. Basically, Blizzard's stated intent with the new raid content and the sort of delivery schedule is there should be a full new raid every 4 or 5 months. Now, that's going to place Tomb of Sagaris opening in June. Now, as for the patch itself, though, and the world content, they can pretty much put that out whenever they please, assuming they've got it all tested and balanced. So conventional wisdom would say perhaps May, but I would not put it past them to drop this patch in late March or maybe early May, and then have a month and a half wait until the new raid is actually activated in the game. I think raiders have got plenty of content to chew away now with the Nighthold being in the game, but perhaps the non-raiders, who really haven't seen much added to the world since launch, I think it's about time they got some new content. And finally, we've got tab targeting. This really didn't receive much fanfare at all. It just sort of snuck into the bottom of the patch notes. I didn't see much coverage of it, but basically they are making tweaks to tab targeting. They've said that the goal is that it's a lot less likely to accidentally tab target to someone who you're not in combat with. Why is this a good thing? Well, I mean, you know, I play a hunter. There are certain memes about hunters accidentally pulling shit that are spread across the internet and are, you know, they are actually backed up by evidence. I mean, I've made a few ninja pulls myself in over my time, but for a lot of ranged classes, this is something that's pretty good. Now, tab targeting is interesting. They had new rules when Legion launched, which they then, I think, rolled back either in a hotfix or in patch 7.1. But basically, what's tricky with tab targeting is you've got three very different use cases. You've got tanks, then you've got melee DPS. They're pretty similar, but they are a bit different. And then you've got ranged DPS. All of these people use tab targeting in a slightly different manner, so I imagine it's quite hard to come up with one catch-all system that is perfect for everyone. So I'm really happy that Blizzard have decided to, you know, do something to try to improve the current system. What I ideally would like is an ability to toggle between like the different implementations that they've actually had, or ideally be able to select my own rule sets for like different situations so I could actually have more granular control over how tab targeting works in the game. So that's pretty much it for this kind of bout of cool but maybe not so well known things in patch 7.2. The patch is still probably a decent bit of time off. There's still, you know, chances for Blizzard to add sort of cool new things that just sort of slip under the radar. So if there is a whole bunch of stuff that ends up in there, I will let you know at a future date. But for now, that's it for the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.